This is my Shark Rocket Pro Deluxe vacuum cleaner. The model number is HV321. And if you remove the canister, you'll see a label inside. That's where the model number is. So as you can see, the cord is damaged, and this is just from wear and tear. This is not, my dog didn't chew it up. It seems to be a weak point because I have another similar Shark vacuum cleaner, and it also is damaged in the same area. I was in the middle of using it and sparks were flying out of the back of it, so definitely need to fix this. My original thought was to replace the cord with a new one, but I could only find them on eBay and I could only find them used, and they were pretty expensive. Considering I bought this vacuum cleaner used and I didn't pay that much for it, I didn't want to spend around $30 for a used replacement cord. So I decided to work with what I have and see if I could salvage it. You're going to need to remove the rear filter and the main canister to get access to all the screws that you need to undo to remove that bottom part. These two screws are torx head screws, and I used a T4 bit to remove them. For some reason, they're the only ones that I had to deal with. The rest are just regular Phillips head screws. I'm just pointing out all the screws that need to be removed. Just to keep things organized, as I remove each screw, I put them on this piece of tape, working from back to front. The first ones I removed in the back are the torx screws, and then the rest are Phillips screws. I think they're basically the same size, except for the ones in the front are slightly bigger. I just like to keep things organized just in case the screws are different sizes. That way they're going back in the spot where I removed them from. So now that we have all the screws out, we can remove that purple bottom piece. Remove this. So at this point, I have removed enough things to actually make the repair. I did continue to remove other things because I wasn't sure how I was going to do the repair, and I wanted to really see everything before I decided how I wanted to tackle this. This is a grounding wire, and there's a screw down here that needs to be removed, and then you need to remove these two screws. There's a clip on the handle that needs to be removed. If you just wedge a screwdriver in there, it comes out pretty easily. Now you can take this piece out. I'm still not able to see everything I want to see, so we're going to remove some more stuff. And while we're at it, remove this filter and clean it. Remove these two screws. There's a hidden screw under this plug, and you're going to need a flat head screwdriver to remove it. In order to get this piece off, you need to remove these two screws. I also had to remove these screws on the other side. I'm now going to remove this switch and see what's underneath it. Now that I have removed the switch, I can see what's going on. We have 2 black wires crimped together, and we have 4 white wires crimped together. My original thought was to remove these crimped connections and solder the undamaged wire here, but that would mean soldering the 4 white wires together, and I didn't want to solder 4 wires together. I'm going to leave these crimped connections alone, and I'm only going to solder together 2 pieces of white wire and 2 pieces of black wire. Since soldering is involved in the repair, I'm going to take it outside and continue to work on it. I tried to pull this plastic sleeve off the cord, but the cord ended up snapping. I have to remove this. I'm using needle nose pliers to try to get that cord out, and as you can see, it's coming out in tiny chunks. I got it out. Now I can reuse this. Instead of cleaning up the wire and putting it back the way it was before, I'm going to do something a little different because I feel like this area needs extra support. Like I mentioned before, I have 2 very similar vacuum cleaners, and both of them frayed in the exact same spot. I have some heat shrink tubing that I bought at Harbor Freight, and I'm just going to add it to the cord to provide like an extra layer of plastic that will hopefully prevent it from fraying again in the same place. I'm slipping it onto the cord, but I'm not going to shrink it until later. I'm now putting this plastic piece back on the cord. Make sure you're putting it on in the right direction where the narrow end goes on first. I'm struggling to get it to slide on, so I'm going to add some dish soap to the cord, and that will get it to slide on easier. I just have to spread the dish soap around a little bit and it's on. Pull that plastic piece far back because you don't want it to get in the way when you're making your repairs to your wires. It's now time to clean up the wires. I trim back these wires. These are stranded wires, and I used the 18 gauge hole to strip about an inch of exposed wire. I made a clean cut on the cord. I'm now going to score the cord to remove the plastic and expose the wires inside while being very careful not to cut the wires. I stripped about an inch off these wires as well. Put this plastic sleeve back on. Before we continue, I want to talk a little bit about soldering. When I first started fixing things that involved soldering, I was really nervous about it, but I watched a bunch of how-to videos on YouTube and I decided to just go for it. With a little bit of practice, you get the hang of it. The only thing I don't love about soldering is that you really have to use the solder that has lead in it. The other type just doesn't work well. It doesn't flow well. I don't love handling things that have lead in it, but I just wear gloves and a mask and I try to be really super careful and it's fine. I have this inexpensive soldering iron that I bought off Amazon and it works great for me. I'm now going to start connecting the wires. Make sure you put your heat shrink tubing on first before you connect the wires. This type of connection is called a Western Union splice or a lineman splice, and it just creates a really strong connection between the two pieces of wire. The wire is soldered and I shrank the heat shrink tubing over the connection. Do the same thing with the black wire. Don't forget your heat shrink tubing. Okay, we're back inside and we're going to start putting things together. I put back the switch and I'm just making sure that all the wires are tucked in along the side so nothing is loose. Put back these two screws. Put back the switch cover and the plug. Put back this piece, put the clip back in the handle, and screw in the grounding wire. I'm now going to decide where to place that heat shrink tubing. I'm going to place it where part of it gets tucked under that plastic sleeve. So this piece overlaps this piece here. I also reconnected this. Put back these two screws. Put back the 5 sets of screws we took out to remove that bottom part. Put back the rear filter.